Well, let me first give everybody just a little bit of a sense of what's happening today, because I know there have been differing reports. Today, the P5 members of the UN Security Council will meet to discuss the joint P3 draft Security Council resolution on Syria's chemical weapons program. Obviously, those discussions and negotiations are ongoing, so we aren't going to read those out or predict in advance. In addition, as you all know, Secretary Kerry, as you referenced, held high-level discussions yesterday with members of the P3, and the Turks also came, of course. And I can also tell you that a group of our technical experts from the U.S., Russia, and Europe are already in The Hague with the OPCW to discuss the international inspection mission. Clearly, discussions about the next steps and what a resolution would look like, what it would entail, are ongoing at the UN. You know that we have been clear that we want this to be, obviously want the strongest possible obligations and enforcement mechanisms included in the text, but those negotiations are, that text is still being negotiated. Clearly, the events and the agreement from this past weekend was a significant step forward. Just a week ago, the Syrians were not even admitting they had chemical weapons. The Russians were not showing a real indication that they wanted to participate or be helpful in this process, and we're in a different place. But we're continuing to work on this every day, and they'll be meeting, the P5 will be meeting in New York later this afternoon.
Lavrov, one thing that you've been wanting to get into this resolution is kind of blaming the regime for this August 21st attack, you know, acknowledging that they were responsible. And Foreign Minister Lavrov said that that's a non-starter. So how do you square this whole idea that the Russians are willing to help dismantle the chemical program, but not acknowledge that the regime was responsible? And is that I don't want to use the word red line, but is that a critical point for you?
Well, first I'll say that we've seen, of course, Foreign Minister Lavrov's comments. He's swimming against the tide of international public opinion. Of course, the report, as we spoke to yesterday, confirms unequivocally that chemical weapons, including the nerve agent sarin, were used in Syria. We all know that. But based on our preliminary review of information contained in the report, several crucial details confirm the Assad regime's guilt in carrying out this attack. Well, remember that one of our goals from the beginning that the Secretary has been speaking with Foreign Minister Lavrov about since his trip to Moscow earlier this spring, since President Putin and President Obama talked about last year, is to eliminate chemical weapons, take that tool off the battlefield. So we certainly see this as a beneficial framework and as a basis for moving forward, and wasn't something that looked possible even just a week ago. At the same time, we are continuing. We've been in continuous contact with Syrian opposition leaders and have been updating them not only on the process, but continuing to support them politically and support the military opposition as well. So that hasn't changed. One just update I want to give for all of you too is that Ambassador Ford spoke today with SOC President Jarba about our efforts to rid Syria of chemical weapons, such as those used to kill so many civilians on August 21st, and about how to use the Geneva II process to move Syria towards a transitional governing body. He also spoke yesterday with the SOC Secretary General. They discussed next steps on the framework reached in Geneva and the SOC election of Prime Minister Toomey. Ambassador Ford said the United States welcomes the election of the Prime Minister and that we support the temporary government's goal of helping the Syrian people on the ground in liberated areas. And finally, today in Istanbul, the SOC is working to develop a comprehensive transition plan that includes preservation of state institutions and guarantees for all citizens following the end of the Assad regime. And that's important to note. I know that was quite a few updates, but because we are continuing to work on a process of ending the civil war and ending the bloodshed that has greatly impacted the Syrian people for 2 years now. And that's a conversation that's ongoing, but there's no question that moving toward a path of eliminating chemical weapons is a positive step forward for Syria.